Hey everybody, welcome to the live stream. You are here to learn how you can convert your website from something that's maybe getting a lot of traffic, but at the end of the day, what drives revenue, what drives businesses are leads and getting demos booked and having proposals sent out to clients and converting people from blank traffic to maybe nobody who's ever heard of you before to actually getting them in the door and actually having sales, right? So today we're super excited. Kate and myself are collaborating on this webinar for our audiences here. We thought we could combine some our followers and provide some free insight to everybody for this webinar. So Kate, thanks for being here. I'm excited.
I'm excited, Dick. Thank you so much. And we're going to jump right in today, you guys. And you probably know a little bit about us, but I'm Kate DiLeo. I'm the CEO and Chief Brand Architect for Ennoble. And Dick, what's your official title besides Captain Obvious or Captain Awesome?
My official title at Online Growth Systems is actually Chief Growth Officer.
There you go.
So, pretty fancy.
So here's what we're going to do today, you guys. We're going to dig right in. We want to maximize this hour for you, and we want this to be really practical for you. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to building websites that convert, that win more work, the first thing we want to do is make sure you've got your message down and understanding what are the key components that you should have for your message and where should those go. So actually, Dick, if you don't mind pulling up, I've got an image that I kind of created as a wireframe for us to view.
Sure.
To just talk through high level what we're going to do here. So, okay, if everybody can see the screen right now, what you're looking at is a very simple wireframe or map of a homepage on a website. And in general, there are many, many folks out there in the world, website developers and designers that have various best practices. But if we could boil it down and say, at the end of the day, what do you really need to have on a homepage for your website to convert? Really, we want to make sure that you have a very strong tagline, value proposition statement, and differentiator statements. Those key things from a brand message standpoint are absolutely critical to ensure that your audience converts. So what I'm going to do is take just a few minutes to explain each of those three items from a brand perspective. And I'm going to pitch it back over to Dick because I'd love to have Dick kind of fill us in from more of the conversion standpoint. So you put that information out there, then what? What else do we need on that website so somebody actually clicks to fill out a form, clicks to buy, contact you, whatever it is that your call to action might be on your website, whatever that goal is, okay? So Brand 101, some of you have been through workshops with me, but I always love bringing people back to the basics. There's kind of three big components in brand that I call like the trifecta. It is your tagline, your value proposition statement, and your differentiator statements. So what are those three things? Well, your tagline is a very short phrase that either says, this is who we are, or this is what we do. And I see both flavors, by the way, out in the marketplace. Sometimes companies have taglines that say, this is who we are. Some say this is what we do. Either way, it's a very short phrase, very, very short, maybe 5 to 7 words max. In your tagline, we want that right across the top image on your website. The moment that somebody hits your homepage, that is the first thing that they should see. Boom, this is who we are. This is what we do. The next thing that's really important from a brand message standpoint in this whole trifecta of branding is something called a value proposition statement. And that honestly is the big, bold, this is how we solve your problem statement. This is a you-focused statement. You'll often see these phrases such as, join this so you get that, do this so you achieve this. It is very much a call to action type of a phrase that you want to have right on your website that hooks somebody in immediately so that they understand, first and foremost, yep, I saw who you are, but how are you solving my problem? So tagline, this is who I am. Value proposition statement, this is how I solve your problem. And then here's the third thing that you've got to have from a brand standpoint. And this is probably the thing that I see missed 95% of the time. Differentiator statements. Differentiator statements, essentially what those do is they very clearly, kind of like the name, call out, this is how we're different than the competition. You will often see these, and Dick, I'm sure you've seen this, when you go to a website, they'll be listed as something like our approach, or our take on how we do work, or why we're better than the rest. And they're a series of statements that have just like a short little snippet phrase, like, you know, strategic planning or focused on people, and then they have a description or a definition for each of those. So typically 4 or 5 statements is what we see as kind of a nice combination platter that says, at the end of the day, Mr. Buyer, Mr. Prospect, or Mrs., when they come to the website, what is it that we're looking for, so that you can easily understand this is how we are unique. So,
and Kate, I'd like to jump in there.
Yeah, go for it.
I think a lot of companies, when they actually state their differentiators, they're not that different. Everybody seems to stick to the same things. And the whole point is a differentiator needs to make you different. Woo, shocker. So some of the examples that you were throwing out, I was like, actually, I feel like a lot of people use, strategy. What makes us different than the competition? Well, we use strategy.
Well,
everybody says that.
Everybody says they have integrity.
We put customers first. We're customer centric. Yeah, you and Amazon and everybody else.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think something I would almost challenge, even though it might not sound as sexy as, we put our customers first. Like, actually find something that makes you super, super unique. Gets people to scratch their heads. I know for even our own, I'll use myself as a case study, online growth systems. What we do is, we say we use ourselves as human guinea pigs, or we use our own company as a guinea pig. Nobody uses the word guinea pig in their differentiator statements. We do. So, and that's because we create our own content, like this webinar. We write our own blogs. We interview people on our own podcast. So that way we can test these new things as they come out, like Facebook Shop that released, I think, 2 weeks ago on Facebook. And we're experimenting on ourselves, so we can make appropriate recommendations to our clients. Right.
Exactly right.
I would challenge
love that.
to make sure they're different.
I love that. For Ennoble, we very clearly state that we have total transparency in our pricing. So many marketers don't publish their pricing. I do. I firmly believe in that. The way that I approach branding and the work that I do for clients is I want them to have one and done fixed pricing, always, always, always. And I want to make sure that they know exactly up front, clear scope of work and why they get that. Well, that's very provocative for somebody coming to my homepage. They immediately understand, okay, she's different. She's not going to just say, oh, I'm going to deliver a strategy for you, and then I don't know what I'm getting and I don't know the price. I very clearly articulate that. And it's interesting, Dick, when we're really transparent about our differentiation and we really get at the root of how we actually do work differently, what makes us very uniquely us, people latch onto it. I've had so many prospects and clients come to me and say, Kate, the fact that you published your pricing was actually one of the biggest reasons why I chose to work with you, because I knew exactly what I was getting. So believe it or not, guys, differentiator statements are critical and they need to be on your homepage. So tagline, value proposition statement, and differentiator statements are kind of what I call the trifecta of branding. And then you're going to notice right below that, and I know, Dick, you're going to weigh in on this in just a second when we talk about key components for conversions on a website, but this is then where we often will see then somebody's read that information, very high level, just nice bullet points, and then they see these call to actions or buttons. They could go to your services pages. They could go to maybe, sometimes I see clients have pages for each specific audience. So they would say, are you a marketer? Are you a sales professional? Are you a CTO? So sometimes they have audience specific pages. Whatever the case may be, this is kind of your place on the page typically to then get a clear call to action. So tell me who you are, tagline. Tell me how you solve my problem, value proposition statement. And then tell me how you're different than the competition. Once you can answer that for me, now I'm actually ready to care about your services and your products.
One of the people we've had guest on our show and collaborate with us on some of our blogs is Jordan Belfort, or also more commonly known as the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yes.
And one thing that he uses, and whether you think his background, is questionable and not as super ethical, but whether you like him or not, one thing you can say is the guy knows how to sell and the guy knows how to convert, right? A little too well, right? But so one thing that he says in all of his books and his courses and stuff is he says in the first 10 seconds of a conversation, a phone call, or first 10 seconds that somebody's visiting your website, you need to answer 3 questions immediately. You need to answer who you are, who your company is, and why they should work with you, right?
Exactly.
So your product, you, and your company. And so this is a good outline of how to do all of that. And then one thing I'd like to mention is a concept called above the fold.
Yes.
Above the fold means it's most commonly used when you're talking to SEO or search engine optimization agencies, and they're like, oh, well, if you want to be above the fold, you need to, build up your SEO ranking and your keyword research and blah, blah, blah. And what that means is the screen that you see. So like, if you can see, this is my screen. let me give you an example here on the screen share. So this is, let's just go to Google. Let's go to Google and let's type in, give me an example, Kate.
Marketing agency.
I spelled marketing wrong. How am I doing here? Live webinar. This is live.
Guys, this is why we're in marketing, right? I mean, this is why we have spell check.
Yeah. Thank God for grammar.
Also why we have coffee. Yes.
So before I scroll down, everything that I see here on this screen is considered above the fold. Once I start scrolling down, now I'm viewing things that are considered below the fold, right? So now you're starting to see all these more organic stuff. So over the years, you can see that all I see here is an add maps, right? You can see I got keywords coming on here because I got some plugins. But so on a website, or whether it's on search engines, you need to make sure that your best call to actions and your best your tagline and all these things you want to have, without it getting cluttered, you have to obviously have a little bit of design in mind, but you want to make sure that the most potent and the most converting things are above the fold. And then once somebody starts to scroll down, you can get to the less important things, right?
By the way, Mike Lewis called out, and I love Mike Lewis. He's like a walking encyclopedia, guys. If you don't know Mike Lewis, you got to connect with him. It's an old newspaper term, he said, if it helps explain why. So by the way, when you're looking at the image that I have here, you can imagine that above the fold, I want you to imagine that on a standard laptop computer, let's say you go to your own website, I should see your logo and your top navigation across the top. I should see that main image, also called a hero shot, with your tagline. And I actually firmly believe that we better see your value proposition statement above the fold. All right. Very often I see these huge images that take up the entire space above the fold. The problem is I come to the website and I don't have enough information to make a decision if you're even worth my time. So I actually recommend, believe it or not, that if you can, shrink that top image up, even if it's by 100 to 200 pixels, and start to show a little bit of that text in bold text, like the value proposition statement. And that actually hooks somebody to want to keep reading and then scroll down.
And Kate, where a lot of people keep their tagline or their value proposition statement?
Where's that? In the footer.
Which is
how's that working
as far
for them?
from above the fold as you can get.
Yeah, how's that going? Yeah.
Right. Or they don't have it all, right? And that's even worse. But at least so just keep in mind that. But the footer it's kind of like the hook at the end of a fishing line. You know what I mean? In case if somebody has scrolled down to the point where they've reached your footer, you know for a fact that they're interested in what you're providing. Why? Because they took the time, well, depending on how long your landing page is or how long the website page is, that they consumed all of the content from the top of above the fold all the way down to your header. To me, that indicates that the person is most likely a qualified prospect or a qualified sales lead, right? Potential customer, and that they have they're a little bit more self-aware or aware of what you can provide based on the fact that they have to scroll through all the content, right? So that's something that's also to keep in mind, is your footer is actually a place where you have a lot of conversions take place, because the rates are just higher. Less people see it, but out of the people who do see it, that's where you want to boost conversions as well, depending on where they land on your page. So.
Exactly. So Dick, speaking of that, I mean, at a high level, we kind of talked about point number 1 today, which was understanding key brand components for your website. But if you were to talk me through like the main goals of your website pages that convert, like what do you typically recommend to folks? So they get their message nailed down, let's say. They go through the process of making sure that they've got key tagline, value proposition statement, differentiators. It's done. It's really, really clear. It actually speaks to their audience. Then what? They put it on the page. Then how do you convert people? What are the goals that you want to see?
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, we'll probably run through, because we forgot to run through the agenda here for the webinar. But if you're here to see how learn how websites work, you're the right spot. So we did a little intro welcome. We understood the key brand components. That's the graph that we just shared. And if anybody, I'll take a minute here and slide back if anybody wants to take a screenshot. Otherwise, I'm sure that we can include it in the follow-up email. But now we're going to be talking about goals of website pages that convert. Then Kate and I are both going to talk about a few simple tricks that help increase our clients' conversion rate. It says here 20%. I'll actually be mentioning one that actually increased it by 76%. Although that was a very unique case study, right? But I mean, if you can apply it in your business, that's huge. That's huge, right? Then we're going to actually be diving into, out of all the ticket holders and all the people who registered for the webinar, one of the questions we asked was, do you want your website to be featured in the webinar for, number one, you get free exposure to all the attendees, and number two, you get free advice, conversion and branding advice from Kate and myself during the webinar. So the three that we picked were Marketers Community, Bus Stop Mamas, and Manufacturing Power. So we'll be reviewing just a few minutes on those three websites and actually giving specific, because it's one thing to talk about the tactical tips and tricks, and it's another to actually pull up a website and then screen share and say, here's exactly what we would do on this website, to increase conversions. Then we'll open it up to a Q&A with everyone who's watching. So if you're on, we're doing this exclusively on a private YouTube link. So that way only, it's not exposed, we didn't want to send it out to the whole world. This is only for people who registered. But if you go to the YouTube comments there, you can comment throughout, and you can actually see, we've got Dave Myers in here. We can actually feature your comment in here to be featured during the Q&A section, and then Kate and I can tackle that.
Absolutely.
And at the very end, we've got of course, a special author, because we practice what we preach, and we want to increase our own conversions, right, Kate?
Of course. So pop back to that image for a second. We're going to give you like 30 seconds max to take a screenshot of this. Mm-hmm. So this is just a simple image, and I give this to all my clients too, because they're like, where the heck do I put all this stuff that we just wrote? Here's where you put it. Keep it simple. And don't you agree, Dick? Like, simple is best. When we really think about what works, if your message is on, and you keep your web pages simple but very clear and concise with good calls to action, that's what converts. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the acronym KISS, right? Mm-hmm. Keep it simple, stupid, right? And I learned that since I was helping my grandpa, paint rental houses when I was just a kid. I think I spent more time spilling the paint than actually putting it on the wall. But, right. Yeah, totally agree. And that's actually one thing we'll probably be talking about is cleaning up your conversion, or cleaning up your landing pages, because I wrote a blog post maybe like 6 years ago, and it was about choice fatigue. Mm-hmm. And people, anxiety is becoming more and more of a thing, or prevalent, right? And as people, when they go to a landing page or they go to a website, and if they see a dozen different things that they can click on and a dozen different call to actions, guess which one they choose? None. The back button. Go to previous page, go back to the search results button, right? Because you have to think about, those are all buttons they can choose as well, right? Mm-hmm. So one thing that we found is the more simple, if you make it more of a funnel-like thing, a funnel-like page, people will convert because they have 1, 2, maybe 3 tops of actions that they can take, right? So is that kind of a key goal then? Like, if we think about then the key goal of like what you want to see for helping pages convert is, so you're talking about a funnel and simplicity, right? Yes. What else are we, so they need to clean up their copy, they need to streamline that home page, but what else really help pages convert? Yeah, so this is a perfect segue into goals of the website, right? So depending on what you're trying to do, so let's say that you are an e-commerce company or a SaaS company where they can actually follow through with the purchase directly on your website. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when you think about a marketing funnel, you have to consider everything from complete, what we call oblivion, right? Nobody's ever heard of you. Nobody knows what you do, who you are. They have no idea that maybe your customer doesn't even know they have the problem that you solve. Right. Right. Then you have to, then your funnel actually becomes larger because you have to have an education included, right? Mm-hmm. So like we were onboarding a new client yesterday, and he owns the patent for I don't know if he owns a patent, but he's created like some new beard coloring for barbers, right? And part of that marketing, I think, now that I'm thinking about it, I think he's actually on the webinar today. But hey, Jared, my favorite barber coming soon. By the way, Ryan says he loves your beard, so there you go. I mean, timely, there you go. Very timely. All right. Thanks, Ryan. But so part of his marketing funnel has to include education, because his target customers are barbers. And this is a new product. It's a new product category, which means it's a blue ocean, which is a positive thing for your business plan. But that also means that your conversion timelines can take a little longer, because there's extra steps, because you have to explain to them why you should buy this new product, why your customers at the barbershop would want to use this new product, right? So
So that's a long way of saying, depending on what your outcome is, right, your marketing funnel will look different. For e-commerce companies, for SaaS, software as a service, where you can purchase and convert right there on the website, you want something that leads them down like a checkout process, right? They add it to the cart, they go through the checkout, you maybe get them some upsells or some cross sells to try to increase the revenue per transaction, right? And then you maybe even do a follow-up funnel, like a post funnel, right? Which is like a pyramid shape, right? Where now you're upselling them on the back end. We do that with a lot of our clients with email campaigns, right? After they become a customer, we say, hey,
Right.
You may also like, that's
Exactly.
a classic Amazon strategy, right? And then the optimal funnel is at the very bottom. You get them to refer a friend or review
Exactly.
you on Google or share your posts on social media, and then they become advocates, right? Not just a customer. So that's one way it would look. So another way is if you are a B2B and it requires lots of hands-on sales, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like let's say book a demo, right? So then the conversion that you're aiming for is you want them to fill out a contact form or schedule something on your calendar,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So then your funnel looks different versus if you're a brick and mortar store or a restaurant and it requires somebody to physically get there. Obviously, the more digital you can make it, the better. So if you can, right now, if you could link to ordering online for your restaurant for delivery or booking a reservation, right? That's something that you can optimize on your website. But if it's just something like your goal is to get your customer to call you and order, say what 3 toppings they want on their pizza, right? Then your call to actions, the last call to action is going to be, call us to, tell us what toppings you want, right? So you can start that transaction, right? So depending on your goal, it could be education, like My Favorite Barber. It could be a transaction, like an e-commerce website, or let's say, like in Mike Lewis's case, he's probably wanting to book a demo with those individuals because he wants
Right.
to show the software, right? So it's going to look a little differently, and we'll actually be showing. These are the 3 websites we're going to be reviewing, and all of them are different. The reason we picked these is because these are different. This is Marketers Community is an event-oriented company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bus Stop Mamas is a B2C, or it's a marketplace where mothers, or any individual who's looking for part-time work can get connected with companies that are looking to hire part-time work, right? So that's a little bit of SaaS, a little bit of human resources type of business, right? And then of course you've got manufacturing power, which is a completely different industry. So that's why we chose these 3 different examples, depending on who you are watching. Hopefully the different insights will help. So before we that's kind of a high level of how you should start thinking about your website as a funnel, and it will be designed differently. But I think the meat and potatoes of the tactical piece of advice will be covered probably a lot in this section here. Kate, so if we want to just kind of dive into
let's dive into that. And I'll call this out. There's 2 of my clients currently. We've done their brand work and they've now implemented on their website. And one of them is in financial services, actually. And then the other one is working in just standard like B2B consulting, operations consulting. And so when COVID hit, they also began to see a change in their conversion rate on their website. They saw an increase in traffic, but they weren't really sure why they weren't seeing necessarily more conversions.
Mm-hmm.
They were going, well, I'm not getting the same number of calls. I'm not getting the same number of people filling out the form. What I will say that has helped them both, as we talked extensively at length, is if you are in a B2B situation where you're selling, let's say, a complex set of services, this is so prevalent like in consulting, right? One of the things that I would recommend that you really consider is asking yourself if there's a way to create a very simple application process to actually apply to do like a free consult with you. And what it does is it allows the person to really hone in and answer questions instead of just filling out a blank contact form, because unfortunately, a lot of us as users out there in the world of web are afraid that if we fill out a blank form, we're not even going to hear back. But if I fill out a very specific application, I actually have a higher level of trust that I'm going to get a very specific response from that person. So this financial services company decided, well, I'm only looking for a very specific target market. I don't need everybody to buy my services. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an online 5-minute application that somebody can apply to actually go through my intro program. So what that did is it turned the supply and demand kind of on its head, where instead of seeming like I'm going to take anybody and everybody, they said, God, if I got 5 people a month to fill out this form, but they're highly qualified and they took the time to fill out that form, I'm absolutely willing to invest an hour, 2 hours of going through kind of a free program with them, because by that point, the conversion rate for me on the phone call is like 90%. They've already gone through the work of doing this. Therefore, actually, my total time investment to trying to convert a random person on my website into a true client, that's a much better process, and it's a much higher ROI. So think about that as well. If you are in consulting, if you're in a B2B space like that, sometimes even just asking yourself the question, what could I do to change up the way that I even have my contact form? Think about having people apply. Consider offering a free hour consult that they can apply to do with you. That is a very enticing offer that might help you increase conversions as well. One of the things that I'm going to specifically say too is I had another client that helped in. So by the way, these two folks that did this saw over an 80% increase in conversions when they did this. So one of them did it in April, and then one of them just did it last month. They did it, I think they implemented it like May 2nd, and then I just reached back out to them and they said, we saw 80% increase in only a single month, which was just outstanding. I was blown away. One of my other clients, though, she didn't really necessarily do anything big bang boom as far as changing up the way that she had her conversion process. She's a real estate syndicator, and all she did was she has her simple form that you fill out to apply, but she decided to take all the brand messaging that we did, and she really followed the parameters that I told her to, of putting your tagline, your value proposition, and your differentiators on that homepage. And I got an email from her last week, and she said, and I checked in with her and I said, hey, Megan, tell me how it's going. And she said, Kate, I have seen over a 687% increase in my website traffic and in my clicks. I was like, no, that's BS. You're full of it. She's like, no, I'm really not. I'm not joking. Like, people are actually clicking on my buttons at the bottom. So we went a couple layers deeper, where in one of those in particular, the total aggregate was over 680% increase across her 3 calls to action. However, what was interesting is for one of those in particular, for one of her core audiences, she saw, I think just on that one alone, something like a 300% increase. And that was actually the buyer she was really trying to go after. So by laying out on the page, before she even got to the calls to action at the bottom, by laying out the tagline, the value proposition, and the differentiators, it actually increased your conversions exponentially. So sometimes, guys, that really could be the magic bullet for you. If you are really struggling to understand why is somebody not clicking, it's very, very possible that they didn't have enough information to even make a choice to learn about your services. And Dick, if you don't mind, I'm going to give one segue on why that's important. And I teach this when I do branding with clients is, why does it have to be in that order, Kate? Somebody asked me, like, why in the world do I need to have it tagline, value proposition, differentiators? Okay, so how many of us have gone into a network situation, right? We go in and we give our elevator pitch, right? So let's say I go up to Dick and I go, hey, Dick, my name's Kate, and I build brands that win more work. Tagline. Mm-hmm. And Dick does this. He goes, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Right?
Your name is, yeah.
Wait, what? Yeah, so provocative statement. I hooked him with a tagline that made him go, wait, okay, well, what do you mean by that? I want to know more. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a brand strategist that helps you clarify your message and create common ground with your audience so they ultimately want to buy from you. Value proposition statement. So here's the missing piece. Most of us would say, great, they're ready to click my services button, right? They're ready to know about all the packages I offer, except they're not. Because here's what happens in psychology. Guess what Dick does next in his brain? Dick is trying to take the information I just gave him and make a comparison in his brain to something he knows to try and make sense of that. So he literally is, and I see this every time when I give my elevator pitch, he literally goes, so are you like brandography or authentic brand? Or are you like that girl Jennifer Zick here in the Twin Cities that does this authentic brand thing? He's trying really hard to somehow connect the dots. So guess what I have to give him in order to get him through that? Differentiators. Well, actually, Dick, I do this. Mm-hmm. And then he goes, oh. So do you all do like a workshop program? Now he's ready to actually learn more about the services. And I see this time and time again that we want so quickly to talk about our services and our offerings, and what we're missing is that differentiation piece. That is critical for the person to literally be able to wrap their head around on who you are, how you're going to solve their problem, why you're different. Now they're ready to buy.
I would like to share the screen again here, Kate,
Sure.
because one of my favorite examples of differentiators is literally calling out your competition
Yeah,
or the
absolutely.
alternative or the
Yep.
old version of whatever it is that you're replacing, the old way of doing things, and comparing it, whether it's apples to apples kind of a thing, like we're better than our direct competitor because, or if you're so drastically different or improved, it's more of an apples to oranges thing, which is a good thing.
Right.
Like another example is when you can directly position yourself as a direct competitor to a popular, but not as well liked. What I would call is like the entrenched, market leader. They have a lot of market share. It might, like there's a lot of companies like Salesforce is known to be super bulky, right? And it's really hard to onboard for the first time. So a lot of companies that are either direct competition or alternatives to Salesforce, they pitch themselves as an alternative to Salesforce, a simplistic version of, HubSpot does that, right?
Yep.
So here's an example here of a company that really does it well. Basecamp. And we used to use Basecamp here at Online Growth Systems back in like 2016 or something. And since then we've, gotten bigger. So we've had to upgrade to different software, but I still follow their marketing stuff because I think Jason Fried is just brilliant at that. Before switching to Basecamp, the before and after model actually works really, really well. That's why it's used on TV. They show, whether it's a weight loss program or a fitness thing or a, before and after, super happy with this brand new car. You know what I mean? That works because then it's instantly communicating the value proposition that you're offering, right?
Exactly.
So you can see here, Basecamp is not just comparing themselves to one competitor, they're comparing themselves to Slack, Trello, texting, Google Docs, Asana, Evernote, the Office suite, you name it. You know what I mean? I think that's Monday's logo.
Yep.
So all of these different, they're like, we do all of the features that all of these bulky softwares provide under one roof. Not only that, but we make it more simple for your team, right? And then boom, what do they do next? They start showing testimonials. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Of companies that have made the pivot, made the switch after, right?
Yep.
And in my opinion, I would clean this up even more.
I would too.
You call Basecamp and say, hey, I think we could increase your conversions. But
and then at the bottom,
then they have the call to action.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And here's the footer, right?
Exactly.
I just wanted to point that out, that if you can actually position yourself as the alternative or the improvement of a particular competitor or market leader, that's a very powerful differentiator. So.
Yeah, I have a training client. She's a trainer. She's a corporate trainer. And she just straight up calls out that she's like Dale Carnegie, but better. She's just like, here's the deal. It's not death by PowerPoint.
That's a bold statement.
I know. And I mean, she just, but it works every single time. She's like, here's the deal. I know that you're looking for Dale Carnegie caliber content. And the guy goes, yep. Guess what? Even better. I'm going to deliver that plus some, and it's not going to be death by PowerPoint. And it's not going to be delivered in a single day where your people are off site for an entire day. Mm-hmm. I do modular. I do this. And he's like, oh my God, yes. So she gave me that case study. This was a couple months ago. And I was going, that is unreal. Like sometimes it's being very bold in your differentiation that can really call you out. I've seen differentiation, you guys, if your personality, if your character as a brand is cheeky, you have a lot of candor, you are somebody that is just kind of off the cuff kind of personality, you're very bold, use that. You still want to feel true to yourself. There's nothing to say that you can't use that, right? Because Basecamp's like, here's the deal. And that's who they are. That's their brand. They're not going to feel stuffy with their brand. So I think you got to be authentic too.
Yes, definitely agree. Let's dive into the next portion here. So what's that one simple trick, and then that you think that's like an actionable takeaway that if they could go to their web developer, whether they're built on WordPress or if they're doing it themselves as a startup on Wix or Weebly or something, or they have a custom JavaScript site, what is one thing that they can email their developer right now and say, hey, change this one thing on my website, and hope that they can see that bump?
I need them to slap differentiator statements in on their homepage above their call to action buttons.
Mm-hmm. Got it. We're gonna give a moment of silence so people can pull up your email account and write that email.
Yes, exactly. Differentiator statements above your call to action buttons on your homepage.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say? What is your big thing? Like, what's your big trick?
Ooh, I would say, if I had to narrow it down to one thing, I would say that they need to understand what is the KPI that they're trying to drive from their website.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, is it an actual transaction? Are you e-commerce? Is it booking a demo? Are you B2B? Is it are you going into a new market category? Are you a startup where maybe it's an investor that you're trying to get, right? So understanding what it is that you want at the end of the funnel, because that influences everything else. And most people, it doesn't align. They'll have marketing. Here's case study. But at the end of the day, or you'll see startups that do, like, here's how we're different and we're awesome. And then at the end of the day, they have nothing to buy. There's nothing, there's no newsletters.
Yeah.
It's just a simple billboard, right? Which is fine, but eventually you want to make sure that your call to action is aligned with everything that you're building.
Absolutely.
So understanding that causes that domino effect for everything else on your website and your marketing, frankly. So next, we're going to dive into, I've got 11 things written down here. So if you see my eyes moving, how to get them down. 11 quick little bullet points. So I'm going to pull up this little this banner here again. So taking notes, I can't recall the some university, I think on the East Coast, did a couple of studies, and they say that if you're taking notes, if you're writing down notes or typing them out, it increases memory retention by as much as 70% in the first 24 hours. So if you're watching this webinar, absolutely encourage you to take notes, even if it's just a little.
Or type them really fast. Type them really fast. And I know we've got 20 minutes left, so let's click through those really quick things, and then we want to dig into
those three websites and open it up.
Go for it.
All right, so here's the dozen, or here's the 11. I should have made it a dozen, but here's the 11 quick little tidbits of things that we look for. We actually this is a portion of a much longer checklist that we go through during a consult with our clients, and that we actually say, okay, should we do this one? Yes or no? And then we go through this bullet point list. And if you collectively add all this up, it's going to explode your conversion rate through the roof. So here's number one, add a countdown timer. One thing that I'll actually going to be recommending that on Marketers Community's website is it's event driven, right? So adding that countdown timer, here's the deadline to sign up for our next event or for our next virtual webinar. You know what I mean? And make sure that it's ethical and it's true, because if it's something that you just every day it just resets, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not going to work.
That's kind of like that slimy marketing kind of thing. But if it's relevant and if it actually is true, I definitely recommend a countdown timer. You can see your conversion rates double sometimes from adding that. Number two, have an exit pop up. I know this is actually a perfect time to pull up a comment here. Dave actually asked, how do you feel about pop-ups and chat windows? Great question, Dave. We do recommend pop-ups, but not just pop-ups. Just clarification. When you go to a website and I'm maybe spending 5 seconds on it and then boom, I get a pop-up, we don't recommend that. That's annoying. People don't like it. You're just asking, like, they haven't even had a chance to read everything that Kate and I have talked about, right? They have no idea what you do yet, right? And sometimes you see it immediately when it loads. We do not recommend that. What we do recommend is called an exit pop-up. So as your mouse starts to leave the screen, your website can sense that. Like let's say that they're about to click the back button or exit or re-navigate to a different tab. Then that action triggers the pop-up.
Exactly.
Hey, don't leave. Wait 5 seconds. If you're e-commerce, you can say, here, use this 5% coupon code at checkout. You know what I mean? Or hey, check out this, download this exclusive PDF or whatever for tips and tricks, and that's called a lead magnet, right? Which I'll be talking about. So we do recommend exit pop-ups. And then there's a interesting tool you can look up called Hello Bar, which actually
I love Hello Bar
GIFs, right? And it's super cool. So there you go. Now you get a little tactical tool you can use. So thanks, Dave, for asking that question. Number 3, using the freemium and the free trial. And then the next step is sometimes experimenting with the $1 trial. So if you do something called A/B testing or split testing, you can have 2 different versions of your website, and you can actually say, let's test the $1 trial versus the free trial and see which one increases more with your audience, and then double down on whichever one you figure out works best. So sometimes the free trial, the free 2-week trial, having that like as a time limit, or having a free trial or a free account that has limited features, those things are what can increase conversion. So if you've got a software tool, maybe like Dropbox, they limit the amount of free storage you have at like 2 gigabytes or something like that. And then to get more, you either have to refer a friend, which is pretty much your marketing and doing sales for them, or you have to purchase it, which is revenue, right? Mm-hmm. So experimenting with that is something that I highly, highly recommend. Point number 4, advice number 4 is personalize landing pages.
Yes.
So if you've got a tool like HubSpot or some kind of a CRM that you can integrate with your website, and you can populate the page with your customers or your prospects' first name, or maybe even more further context. Here's a little call to action, a little shout out for Josh Feedy, a good friend of ours. His is like the customization landing page at its finest, right?
Oh,
like you have a video that's literally calling out to that individual that only one person's going to see that landing page, right? So but you can obviously scale it back to like using like a HubSpot type thing, and then you can scale it back even further. If you have, this is a blank prospect, this is like their first time coming through your funnel and you have no idea who they are, what you can do is you can use a geolocation, they have to have those turned on their browser, but you can populate the city that they're from according to their IP address, right? So you can say, we are providing marketing and branding services for the best and brightest companies in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And then that Minneapolis, Minnesota is dynamic because your website can actually, depending on their geolocation and their IP address, you can swap that out for Philadelphia, Phoenix, California, whatever. So that way they're like, oh my gosh, like they feel like your differentiator, one of your differentiators that Kate's talking about is we work exclusively with companies where you're from, right? So that's a way that you can do that. So any way you can personalize it, it works great. Number 5, personalizing the images. So this is again personalizing, and a tool I want to recommend for that is Pick Snippet. So you can have an image, of yourself holding up a sign, and then it can dynamically populate with, "Hey, John," something like that. So I'm gonna keep going here, but number 6 is retargeting. This isn't necessarily something that you can do on the front end of the visual piece of your website, but we're talking about websites that win work. And part of what wins work is the marketing piece, right?
Yes.
And the back end. So something like Google Analytics and making sure that you have all those tags up to date and it's working and it's integrated and you're counting and you're keeping track of those. That's going to educate you to make decisions that actually drive revenue and drive sales or whatever it is KPI you're trying to drive.
Correct.
Another thing is having the pixels like Facebook pixel. So that way you can do Facebook and Messenger and Instagram and WhatsApp and all those ads. Even if you're not planning on advertising through those platforms, they provide a shit ton of data that you can use in your other marketing efforts. So, and it's free to have the pixel. So why would you not do that? So make sure that your pixels and your analytics and your tags are all on your website, whether you're planning to do that or not, because it can build up those assets over time.
Yep.
That's something that we make a requirement when we build a website for our customers. Even if you're not planning on hiring us for marketing, if you're just doing web development, we're including all of these because 2 years down the road, when you're ready for marketing, we're going to have 2 years worth of data collected from the pixels. So make sure you got those on there. Number 7 is quizzes. So this is a great segue or tie back to what you said about the application process. That's similar, right? So if you're B2B and you're doing a consult, have them do an application.
Absolutely.
If you're another good one is have a quiz type thing, right? Where they go through the, find out if your website converts. That could have been an alternative to the webinar we did today. And then, everybody goes through and answers a dozen questions. And at the end, it says, great, to review your results, and get your score based on 1 through 100, enter your email here and we'll email you the report or we'll email you the quiz results, right? So that's another way that, and that's actually particularly the one that I mentioned earlier that some of our clients have seen a 76% increase in conversions from switching from the regular contact form to a quiz. 76%.
It's huge. It's so powerful. If that one thing, I've seen more and more people in the current virtual economy we're experiencing, it creates such a tie between people feeling like they're just coming to a brochure website to something that becomes interactive and custom, and I actually know what I'm going to get. Yes. Mm-hmm. I know we got to keep clipping though. It's 12:45, Dick.
Okay, number 8, lead magnets. If you go to onlinegrowthsystems.com, one of the first things we show on our landing page is a downloadable or a PDF ebook, right, on social media marketing. That thing I wrote, I should probably update it because I think some of the screenshots are like just, it shows my Twitter and I'm like, holy crap, like no beard, baby face, right? But that lead magnet that I made when I was like, I don't know, it was like 2015. To this day, it's evergreen content. So it's still generating like 2 or 3 leads a week for my company. And I wrote that thing 5 years ago. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So definitely check out lead magnets. Number 9, call to actions. We kind of already talked about that, so I'll skip that over. Number 10, features versus benefits. So kind of what Kate talks about. You have feature versus what is this driving? oh, we have this great chat tool. Well, what is that doing for your customer? If it's something like the value that you're communicating is we increase conversions to this chat tool that we offer. We save on average, 2 hours a week per employee. And then another good thing is then you include a calculator, a savings calculator. How many employees do you have? 5. How many hours a week do you spend on answering emails? 3. It multiplies 5 by 3. It says we can save you 15 hours a week on emails. What is your average salary? 50 grand. And then it says we have a cost savings for you for this tool of X dollars minus what we charge. This is a total saving. Right?
Yeah, and I would tell you this, you guys, if you haven't done the exercise of going through and refining your brand message, whether you do that on your own or you work with an agency or whatever you do, you need to make sure that you're evaluating your products and services at that time and actually clearly for each product and service articulating the benefits and features of those and the clear value of that so that you can actually know what those numbers are. If you don't, then to just say, I offer this consulting service, well, great, so does everybody. So unfortunately, it's not going to do enough for you to get somebody to the table if that is not clear.
And then the last one I have here is social proof.
Yes.
Social proof can be grouped into several things, but some low-hanging fruit are including testimonials.
Absolutely.
Including reviews. If you're e-commerce, you should have a review feature on every individual product, right? If you're a company that sells services, testimonials are a really good route, right? And obviously, if you can go from plain text to let's include their headshot and their name and their title of their company, even better than that, include a video testimonial. So if you go to onlinegrowthsystems.com/testimonials, we've got like 12 of them, and we have them separated by industry and separated by, these people hired us for video, these people hired us for software development, these people hired us for marketing, and then it's giving different testimonials for that. And that page converts like crazy, right?
Absolutely.
So, social proof. And that's it for the just that. I just wanted to give a little taste of some of our checklists that we go through with our clients.
Absolutely.
Are you ready to dive into those 3 websites?
We are. Laura King from Marketers Community is not on today, so she said to go ahead and bypass for today since we've got limited time, and I just got that message from her. Let's dig into the other 2 websites that we have, and then still try and give about 5 minutes for Q&A. Want to let you guys know if you need to drop off right at 1 o'clock, we totally understand. Quick housekeeping. If for some reason you do want information on the special offers, because we do have special offers today for anybody that is looking for support for their website or branding, you go ahead and email either one of us. I'm going to give my email right now. It is kate@ennoble.com. That is KATE @ennoble.com, and I'll spell that ENNOBBLE.com. Kate@ENNOBB.com.
You can see it right here, the spelling, minus the accent.
Yes, exactly. So for any reason you have to jump, and then Dick, what is your email so they can reach out to you at Online Growth Systems?
Sure. I'm planning to put this replay to some of our VIP members on our community, so I don't want to give the email here. But so if you just go to onlinegrowthsystems.com, we have plenty of optimization. So if
there's going to be a way to reach out to you.
Me, I'm doing my job wrong. Yeah.
So perfect. So let's take a look at Bus Stop Mamas. Let's start with that website.
Okay. What are your first thoughts, Kate? If we compare it to this right away,
Okay. I don't see enough information. So for me coming to this website, I think their logo is great. I think from a visual brand standpoint, love the colors, nothing wrong with that. But really, really the first thing that I notice is I don't understand enough about you. I don't see a value proposition statement. I see Bus Stop Mamas, and then I see connecting super businesses with super mama talent. That's more of a tagline that doesn't really tell me though what problem you're solving for me. Like, why should I care about that? And so what I want to see above the fold of the page is your value proposition statement. So an easy fix, to be really candid with you, is shrink up that white space in that lovely large graphic a little bit. And then you see that pink section where it has about us. That's where I would put in very, very large white font, a very big, bold value proposition statement. Boom, right there. Put that above your About Us section, and that would solve a lot of problems. Dick, what do you see?
Yeah, I think those are really good points. One thing I would also include here, and I don't want to just look above the fold. I want to look at everything. I think the social proof aspect would be extremely powerful for Bus Stop Mamas, because really they're trying to serve 2 different groups. They need to get mamas or, freelancers to sign up to be in their network, right? Which they have a call to action for, right? But they also need to get businesses that are seeking those freelancers. So they really have two different groups of people. So one thing I would maybe recommend is almost having whether it's a separate website or a separate landing page, or immediately split them into the correct funnel. So if you remember earlier, I keep echoing, what is the KPI that you're trying to drive? What is the metric that you're trying to get? They have two. They want mamas to sign up to join the network, and they want organizations to list their job postings here so they can connect the two. Right now, I'm only seeing the one for the mamas. Where's the call to action for the businesses?
Yes.
Right? And if this is the same call to action, that's not even clear, right?
No, not at all.
So whether that's two call to actions of businesses, list your job here, or find freelancers, right? Mamas or freelancers, join our network. Having the correct call to action, and then splitting them down the correct marketing funnel.
Exactly.
Right? And then depending on which one they choose, then you dynamically populate the rest of the page, right? You can do that. You force them to select something, right? And then you dynamically populate the rest of your landing page to say, have a video testimonial of 3 mamas that have really great stories. Like, I had my second child, and I was just really feeling the call to, stay home more often. But I still wanted to work because I'm super passionate and I'm really good at what I do. Have a 30-second video here playing of that testimonial, so that other mamas say, oh my gosh, they feel like they understand how I feel, and this is totally the solution I've been looking for. And then they sign up, right? And then for the businesses, they can say, we were looking for a part-time solution or a part-time freelancer, but we needed high caliber talent. Like, we couldn't just find some freelancer from overseas. Like, we needed local, high caliber experienced talent. So this was a great solution for us, because we looked at their talent pool, and there's, executives from Best Buy and from corporate America that just are on, they just wanted to spend more time at home, with their kids. So this is perfect to get that super high caliber talent at a fractional part-time basis, and then having those other businesses give those reviews. It's going to cause other businesses to jump on that train and become customers.
Couldn't agree more. I love it. Let's click to the next one, manufacturing power here.
What do you see, Kate?
All right. So when I first come to this one, they ask a question, which is great, but I don't see a clear tagline here. And I don't, well, here's the thing. I need to see a tagline of who you are. And then this sentence of our data awareness tool will help mitigate supply risk while ensuring best pricing. That's close. That's almost a value proposition statement, but I would flip that sentence a little bit and would say, do this, you get this. That is how I want to see a value proposition statement really read. It needs to speak to the user when they hit that page. The other thing that I'm really confused by, and I know this sounds so silly, is that phone number right there. When you hover your mouse over it, is the whole thing even clickable, or is it just the end of it?
It is not. So actually, it's two separate parts that are clickable. So if you can see down here, if you look down here, put your eyeballs where my mouse is. When I hover over this, it's giving a dynamic link to telephone, but it stops at the 3. So the POWR isn't registering. And when I hover over the extension, so if I click on this on a mobile phone, it's going to pull up my phone app and just have the number 7697 into the phone. So this is actually broken.
It is broken, yeah. The other thing that I would say too is, again, like, nothing wrong with the overarching design that I would say to have a very clean top line nav, but for the fold of the page, I'm not seeing a big, bold value proposition statement. So somehow we've got to make sure, guys, that your tagline is really prominent across the top image, your value proposition. And then what they're moving into is as easy as 1, 2, 3. So Dick, what would you suggest from here on out? I'm not seeing differentiators quite yet, unless that video is describing their differentiators.
One thing that I always try to count on is, number one, videos always convert better, and they always have higher conversion rates, but not everybody clicks on them. It's just a fact. So one thing that you have to do is not totally depend on the communication to be dependent on people clicking the video to watch it. So if this is where their value differentiators are, they need to have, maybe this is it, but we could read more, but, having it next to it, listed out in text, because people like to consume content differently. That's why our podcast gets to go on. We have an audio podcast. We have it on video. We have it on our YouTube channel. We have it written down in show notes for our blog, because not everybody who listens to podcasts read blogs, and not everybody who reads blogs watches YouTube videos. Those are different audiences, because they consume content in different mediums. That same thing can be applied on your conversion rates of your website. Another thing here is there's a lot of white space that's unnecessary. I would actually stretch this video to the edges of the page if possible.
Yes, I would too.
And whether that's making the page smaller or, making the section smaller, or it's just stretching the
Or
video.
either that, I would shrink that to half or a third and then have the written versions next to it of what are the key points from the video if you want to take up that real estate together. One of the two.
Right.
Yep.
And then here's another thing here. Let's test this. Let's see what it looks like on mobile. Right. I don't know if people are probably shocked. Whoa, how'd you do that? I'm a developer.
Tricks of the trade. Yeah.
So one thing here is you want to make sure that you're mobile friendly. So their cookie policy it was good size, perfect size for desktop. Their cookie policy is way too big for mobile. You know what I mean? Most mobile phones aren't this tall.
Can take up a lot of stuff.
Going to take up 2/3 or a third of the mobile phone, right? So I'd shrink that down if possible. And you see how like they got these huge number ones, you know what I mean? So I would maybe shrink those down. Let's switch it back. There we go. So I just wanted to point that out too. So in case you're wondering what your website looks like on mobile, you can right click with your mouse, go down to inspect, and then you can click that little icon that you saw there. So that's kind of a cool little tactical trip. Another thing here is, do you notice how their header is transparent? That's something I would clean up. I would make their header a solid color, because then when you get to things like this, it doesn't look so messy.
Yes.
And I can't really read that.
Great point.
So another thing here is I would include the difference between the feature and the benefit piece, right? So right now they've got add to the data. Well, do I need data? What is adding to the data do for me? Yeah, the feature is you can add to your data peer-to-peer comparison. Okay, boom, there, now they have it. Savings of 11 to 15% or more. So
just clearing, you got to clarify those differentiators with some stronger language, and that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I know we could go on for everybody's website that's on this call, and I apologize that we don't have time to go to every single thing, you guys, because we're at 12:58. Here's the deal. Dick, let's do this. Let's let everybody know what our offers are, and let's leave this chat box open for some Q&A for those folks that maybe have 5-10 minutes that would like to stay on. We're going to keep the chat open for about 5-10 minutes, if that's okay. But for those folks that need to jump off, we want to respect your time.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to mention, you guys are coming in. We first of all, I truly hope, and I know Dick feels the same way, that this was practical for you, that you guys were able to at least take and comment and let us know yay or nay, but was this practical? Did you at least get 1 or 2 tips and tricks that you could take with you today to immediately go and apply on your website? Because that is truly our hope when we do these things, is we love to educate and equip you. From an offer standpoint, anybody that is here today that is going, you know what, I am really struggling with my message. I am really, really, really struggling. If for some reason that is the case, I would love to offer you a pared down package if it is something of interest to you, to help you get your website up to date. And you can go ahead and give me a call directly or shoot me an email, and I can explain details on that. And Dick, what about you?
Sure. So we offer a lot of different services. Our value statement is we help companies scale from 1 to 200 million through fractional digital services. Mm-hmm. So we provide everything from video production to website design and development, software development, marketing, digital marketing, and we have a rock star team. Part of our business model is we work with individuals on projects that they might be. I'll just give an example. Our designer works at Microsoft from 9 to 5, and then works for online growth systems on evenings and weekends, and she's the person who makes all of the slideshows or all of the templates for PowerPoint. Like, she's that person. Like, if you've ever used PowerPoint ever and you've ever used a template, she's the one who made it, unless you're talking 20 years ago or something. But so she's like one of the top designers on the planet. It's a super talented company here. So if you want to work with us, definitely reach out to us. Go to onlinegrowthsystems.com. Like I said, we practice what we preach. So hopefully there's a dozen ways you can get a hold of us and interact with our company.
And here's the deal. We totally respect, by the way, I always tell this to people, like, we hope that you got some good stuff out of it today. Mm-hmm. We will probably reach out to you. I'll probably send you each a personal email to thank you for joining us, and just see if you had any questions as it related to brand. Should you decide that you would love to talk with us more about what we offer, great. But we really hope that this was valuable for you, and that you at least came today, going, God, I got something that I could take away. Jenny commented and said she was editing her site live. That's amazing. Any other comments?
That's
And we'd
awesome.
love to open it for questions right now.
So we'll, I just commented there on YouTube, did you get value from today's webinar? So if you did get value, I would love to know what is the one specific tip or trick that you're going to take away from today's call, whether you're like, you said somebody, I can't remember who you said, but they were editing their site live.
Jenny, yeah.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
You know, or if you have an email opened up and you're like making a bullet point list to your developer, no, I need point 1, point 2, point 3. You know what I mean? Maybe what's 1 or 2 things that you learned from today that you're going to implement on your website? You could even do it in the next 24 hours and see how that conversion bumps.
Yeah, Sai just commented, by the way, real quick. Yeah. Can you speak more about the education piece for websites that need to explain a problem we solve that potential customers may not know in their organizations? What is a good practice for that? Sai, are you kind of talking about the overarching value proposition statement of articulating how you solve somebody's problem in general? And like, how do you get at the root of maybe what problem that is, of trying to figure out like, what is the problem we're trying to solve for?
I think if I could
go for it, Vic.
A guesstimate of what Sai's trying to ask is, so I talked about my favorite barber, one of our clients earlier in the call, and one of the obstacles that he has to overcome in the sales process and the marketing funnel is it's a brand new product category. You know,
perfect. That's probably what he's talking about. Yep. Perfect. Go ahead.
So part of that funnel has to be, it's not just like, hey, here's who we are and what we do. You know, here's where you can buy it. He has to add a 4th step, right? Where in that funnel, he has to say, here's what the product is, and here's why you should even consider adding this to your barbershop services, right? Like this beard coloring stuff, right? So, and Jared's probably cringing because I don't know the terminology very well. But one thing that you have to do is create educational content, right? So whether that's having an instructional video or having a step-by-step process or a checklist. And what's great is you can actually use that content creation as a part of your lead generation strategy. So let's give an example. If you have a brand new product category, or if you're trying to educate if you need to educate your customer on your solution, or even they might not know that they have a problem.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really hard to sell somebody on, sell somebody water when they don't know they're thirsty and they're dying of thirst. You know, like, hey, I've got the perfect solution for you. And they're like, no, I want some pizza, So one thing that you can do is, let's say that you provide a checklist, you have, a downloadable checklist, enter your email here to get emailed the checklist to see, how to optimize your website conversion rate. I'm just using it as an example, right? Or how to maximize your whatever, save time in your company, how to have more happiness, whatever it is that whatever the benefit, right? Not the feature, the benefit is, have that be the call to action, have them download something or, fill in their email to be sent something. And then that's where you provide that educational content. And it can be videos, it can be blogs, it can be a checklist, it can be any of those things. So that's some recommendations.
The other thing that I'm going to tell you too, this works like a charm, is you have to take a doctor approach. So what I mean by that is when I do branding for somebody, they very often say, oh, everything's fine. I just, I always have had chronic back pain. It's fine. You hear that? Okay, so here's the thing. Instead of saying you can say like our product does this, but they say, well, I don't need that. I'm not thirsty. You'll say, are you experiencing a dry throat? Are you experiencing itchiness? Are you experiencing cough? All of a sudden you start asking these questions like, are you experiencing this? And that person goes, oh my God, I do have a problem. So sometimes it's very simple by getting at what's root cause and calling out all the symptoms they have. And then say, great, if you're experiencing all these symptoms, then your root pain, your root issue is this. Oh, and by the way, we solve that.
Yeah.
That's kind of sometimes the method, is taking a doctor approach. And honestly, I've seen people even go so far as then they create content around each of the symptoms. They create a social media post around each of the symptoms. They create white papers on each of the symptoms. It is so systematic, but then all of a sudden it goes, oh my God, I am experiencing that. That is going to solve my symptom. Perfect.
You want to scratch their itch, right? I think that's a great point, Kate.
Yeah. So it's very, very hard, especially if it's a new product or software where you don't really know, like, how do I explain that they even need this?
Right. Right.
Speak to their symptoms.
And so I said, yes, that is what they're asking. So perfect.
Cool. Any other questions? Oh, I love this. Jenny, look at you with Act Thoughtful. Homepage was top win, made changes. Love it, girl. And you and I are talking in a couple weeks, but I love hearing that people are doing this on the fly. Any other questions for us today, guys?
While we're waiting for more questions to come through, I'll start featuring some of the other comments here. So Tamsin said, very helpful. Love the practice of personalizing your website, encouraging you have Google Ads and Pixel set up, and making things mobile responsive. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. Super glad you could tune in. And again, that little tip that you can check to see what your website looks like on mobile. Obviously, you could just pull up your own website on your phone, right? And then that's
absolutely.
way to do it. You want to do it on your desktop, you right click with your mouse, go to inspect, and you can select that mobile viewpoint. So Mike Lewis said, definitely great ideas. Got to jump. Look forward to catching up with both of you soon. Thanks, Mike, for tuning in.
Dave Meyer, thanks for checking in. Said, great job. Love it.
Scott said, this is from earlier when we were talking about, I think probably the Jordan Belfort thing. Said, yes, clearly in 6 seconds, who, what, why, and how. Absolutely agree. If you can't answer those questions right away, preferably above the fold, like we talked about earlier in the webinar, you're going to start to lose people in the conversion. So, Kate, what's, so I said, thank you, or perfect, thank you. What is one last little tidbit, or what is an upcoming trend that you see for future that maybe people can start doing to get ahead of the curve or ahead of the competition? And it doesn't have to be totally on website conversion. It could be just something in marketing, tech, sales, branding.
Oof. Before I answer that, can I answer Dre's question?
Oh, yes, we've got one pulled up.
We do. How do you differentiate yourself and your services in an industry where many offer what you offer? Yes, market saturation. Okay. First thing that I got to tell you is you need to clearly know who the heck you are. So very often I see the mistake of everybody trying to compare themselves to everybody else. Well, I want to have my branding like Nike and I want to have my branding like Adidas. You're not Nike. You're not Adidas. The first thing I need you to really reckon with is that you have to own your expertise. I need you to clearly be able to articulate your core purpose and your core why. People buy your why. So everything starts with that. If you can write that down, then it's easy to really flow from that to say, well, wait a second, it is my why that makes it different in how I offer X, Y, and Z, in the way in which I do my work, the way in which I'm an expert at X, Y, and Z. So you have to know yourself. And here's the second big thing that you really, really need to do is you have to understand your target audiences. And to say that you go for mid-sized manufacturing companies is not enough. What I mean when I say know your audience is, have you actually written a list of the key values of your target audience and the key pain points of your target audience? Oh, and the root causes of those pain points. Have you articulated key buying behavior and criteria? There is a set of work around clearly understanding your target audiences. It's only when you genuinely know your why, your purpose, and own it, and then can clearly understand the pain that you're trying to solve for over here, that you can connect that with a singular message.
Totally agree. I think I'll pull the question up again so people can remember what it is we were answering. I think a great example, again, is if we pull up the base camp thing, right? Sometimes literally calling it out works fantastic. So how to separate yourself from your competition, you don't have to include the logos, right? But you can have like little avatars or little caricatures or, little cartoons representing your competition and say like, these companies A, B, and C, they promise X, Y, and Z, right? Here's how we're different and here's how we stand out and here's why you should work with us instead. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only other thing that I always tell people too is it's very, very easy for us as the entrepreneur or the person selling the product to want to go into all of these benefits and features and all this other stuff. And we talk and we talk and we talk and we talk and we talk. If you are selling a product or service, let's say, and there's 50 of you out there. So for example, like Dick, raise your hand if there's 5 million marketers in the Twin Cities like us. Legit, right? So how in the world do we differentiate ourselves, right? I get this all the time from photographers and you name them, right? Like anybody. Okay, so the reality is I think one of the biggest sticking points that I think makes you different is, yes, calling out your competition, yes, dynamically owning that. But I want you to really ask yourself, what problem am I really solving for somebody? So one of my clients, financial services industry, that's a dime a dozen. Like, no offense, they know it. They're like, there's 5 million financial planners in the world. I'm like, yes, there are. And probably 3 million live in Minneapolis. Okay. So how in the world are they supposed to be different? I said, well, are you solving a financial pain or are you solving a people pain? Are you solving a dollars pain or are you solving a lifestyle pain? What we recognize is this, is sometimes what we think the surface level pain that we think we're solving for our client is just that. That's actually just the surface level pain. Keep asking yourself, why do they care about that? Why do I need to solve that pain? Why? And if you ask yourself why 4 or 5 times, you will actually get to the real pain that you're solving for.
Yep.
And that is the message that somebody's going to latch on to.
Yeah. I'm about to reveal what pair of pants I'm wearing because I'm going to grab a book that I think does a great job of answering or kind of iterating what you just said. So you be a distraction so people can't wearing shorts on a webinar.
And while Dick goes, Scott Heilman calls out regarding how to evaluate using the STAR process: situation, task, action, results. However you do it, you might have a really good process of how you do that, of understanding pain and how you solve the pain. That's great. I think the big thing, though, is if you're kind of like, I'm not a process brain, Kate, cool, no worries. What I would say is, again, get to the root pain that you're trying to solve for. And if you're struggling to get at that, it may be worth trying to have a conversation with somebody who understands how to really dig into that pain and help you articulate that message.
Mm-hmm. So one last thing I want to do here is I want to show the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Because what Kate was talking about before of asking why 4 or 5 times, that process is called reverse engineering, right? Mm-hmm. So when you reverse engineer your brand or your marketing strategy or your go-to-market strategy, you start to boil it down to the real essence and real answer. So in Tim Ferriss's case, this book alone is a great example of like a physical version of a landing page. This has high conversion rate. He actually split test the cover. He split test the title of the book back in like 2006 when he wrote it. Super interesting. So he did a very marketing and conversion rate oriented approach to selling this book. Mm-hmm. And this is the result that it came up with. We got the visual, and then it almost looks kind of like your wireframe, doesn't it?
Yep.
What's the value proposition, right? So if you ask, what book are you writing, Tim? And he says, I'm writing a book about how to work remotely and how to scale a company and how to live happier and have a more interesting lifestyle. Well, holy crap, that's like a dozen different things, right? Those are all feature. What are the benefits? Well, people are typically have more money and they're happier. Okay, well, why? You ask it 4 times, and eventually it comes down to, what is the value that you're delivering? I'm delivering a 4-hour work week.
Boom.
A 4-hour work week. Holy crap.
Now that's provocative. That is provocative.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, I'll tell you this. Sometimes we have a mental roadblock in our brains when we do our branding and our messaging of how to come up. Oh, Scott's got to jump. Scott, I'm excited to work with you too. You're awesome. So we start on Friday. So sometimes we actually, and I think this is a Minnesota thing, I don't know what it is, we have such a fear of coming off as pretentious to boldly say, this is how I solve your problem, or I'm a master at this. Like, that is just like so anti-Minnesota nice. Here's the deal, guys. If you're not winning work, chances are you're not actually showcasing and owning your expertise.
Yep.
Owning your expertise is a mindset. That's about being provocative, not being pretentious. And there is a difference. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to call it out and own it.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah. Well, we're at 1:15. Do we have any other questions here before we wrap up? And we apologize, we got to say goodbye, but this has been awesome.
Yeah, and if for everybody who's watching, we'll send a follow-up email with the replay. So to the individuals who purchased the VIP tickets, you'll get the replay sooner. And we'll be in touch with you. We'll be in touch with you.
There you go.
About your one-on-twos with Kate and myself. So thanks for signing up for those. I think that's it, Kate. Thanks for being on, and thank you too.
This was awesome, you guys. Thank you. You guys have a great one. We appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.